Hey, it's Eric Peterson, Proven Realty, broker by EXP, and I've got an exciting guest today, the one and only Steve Kemp, Williston native and a county commissioner. And he and the team over there at the county just brought out the best program that we've seen to incentivize buyers and builders and help us try to alleviate our number one concern, which is housing. So welcome, Mr. Steve Kemp. How are you?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me, Eric.
You bet. I know you and I have been having this conversation now for 3 or 4 years. We'd mastermind a lot together. We've been doing a lot of strategy sessions about how to fill this role. And you also, as we talked about in our last interview, you actually were on the governor himself, right? Our Secretary of Interior, when he was governor of North Dakota, the housing committee. And so that experience and everything else that you and the rest of your team have been doing has really led us to this. Jump right in and tell us exactly what this builder buyer housing incentive program is all about.
The number one goal is we need new inventory. We are so short on inventory for housing, and we have such a housing crunch right now. And what is precipitating this is not only just the traditional growth in our oil and gas sector and our traditional ag economy as well, but we've got a tremendous amount of new opportunity that's coming to the table for the region, and we need to play ball, and we need to encourage as best we can in helping manipulate the market, because ultimately we are manipulating this market by providing an incentive, right? But we're manipulating it hopefully in a very positive way by encouraging additional new starts on homes and helping the buyer get into those new homes. So we're not trying to do one without the other. We're trying to put the two together in a useful program that really hats off to our staff for putting the fine details on this. We as commissioners come up with grandiose general plans, but a lot of detail and a lot of effort, a lot of work goes into this. I mean, our staff has technically been working on this for a couple of years now. So we finally have gotten it to fruition, and I could not be more proud of our staff for putting this together in such a wonderful way.
Yeah, and not only a wonderful way, some of these incentive programs that we've seen, i.e. McKenzie County, for example, they incentivize either the builder, right, or the end buyer. Their current plan incentivizes the end buyer with up to 10% down for down payment assistance on the house. You guys decided to do the two-headed monster approach and have a lot more diversity, because without the builders being incentivized, it doesn't matter how many buyers want to buy. There's no inventory. So walk us through the program and all of the nuances. There's a lot of moving parts here, and I want people to be very clear on this. And I think it's simple when you break it down, but it kind of seems confusing because there is a lot to it. So no man better than the smartest guy I know doing it. So go ahead.
That's very generous, but the easiest way for people to educate themselves, because we don't expect them to take everything that we say here today and write it all down. Of course, we've got resources for them to do their own diligence on their own side. Both builders and buyers should visit our website, and I'm pointing at my own screen, at williamsnd.com. So www.williamsnd.com. And when you reach that main page, there's news listings. And on those news listings, as you scroll down the page, you'll see news, and you'll see Williams County launches builder buyer housing incentive program to boost new home construction. So please, that's the very first thing I'm going to say. Go there, educate yourself, and learn everything you need to know about the program. Yeah, because who knows what's going to come out of my mouth, right?
Right. We're going to have a link below, and then also you can see it in the comments as well. And so you'll be able to find this information for you guys out there. So run us through some of the highlights and the key points if you can, Mr. Commissioner.
Absolutely. So this program covers a lot of different bases. And so the very first thing I want to talk about is that we're really doing two different things here. We've implemented a property tax exemption for both builders and buyers. So if you're building a spec home as a builder, you can get a property tax exemption for the first 2 years or until it's sold. And then for the buyer, even if the builder gets that exemption, the buyer then can get that exemption for the next 2 tax years. And it's based on the true and full valuation. It takes $150,000 off that true and full valuation of the structure. The land always gets taxed. It never is not taxed as a part of the property tax exemption. That's something to just keep in mind. Yep. So we have the property tax exemption, and that applies to everything outside of city limits throughout the county. So that includes Williston, who already has a property tax exemption in the city limits. And now what we've done by doing this is extend that beyond the city limits. And so There was a lot of confusion about the ETJ, for example, that 1 mile extraterritorial jurisdiction that the city had on planning and zoning. That did not account for their property tax exemption. So now that ETJ is included as a part of this exemption process.
Or else in the whole entire county outside of city limits now also gets the same tax benefits as the ones in. Perfect.
Absolutely. It's important for us to note at this point, cities like Tioga, Ray, Grenora, we would like to encourage them to do these same programs, but we have no jurisdiction with regards to that program inside city limits. They have to implement their own programs like the city of Williston has done. But everywhere outside of that, anywhere in Williams County now can apply for the property tax exemption. The second part of the builder buyer program is going to be financial assistance. And that is focused on both the buyer and the builder. And it's a different amount for each one and different circumstances for each one. So it's, again, remember to go visit the details on the website for yourself. But basically what it boils down to, the number one limitation for either the builder or the buyer is going to be that the sale price of the home must be under 10% of what the current FHA limit is in your area. And for us, as of 1/1 of 2025, it's $576,647.50.
The total house, when they go to buy it, has to be below $576,647, which is 10% over the FHA loan limit. And I believe that the FHA loan limit's the same in all of North Dakota now. And so either way, that purchase price is a big number, even at today's high construction costs, gives you a lot more flexibility and a lot more options on the quality of the house you're going to have. So that's super brilliant. Good job.
100%. And then it's a floating number, right? So as the FHA number changes, we always just use that number plus 10%. And that way it's just easier for people to track.
And how much can they get? Tell us about what that assistance looks like to the buyers.
Absolutely. Okay. So the buyer or the builder can apply for up to $5,000 for utility connections. That's hookup fees for electricity, natural gas, water, sewer. Again, the buyer or the builder can apply for that $5,000. Then there's the infrastructure costs, which is connecting the home to mainline utilities, special assessments, septic installation, community sewer systems. That's up to $25,000 that the builder can apply for. And so what we're trying to do, and those are direct pay, by the way. There is no, we give the buyer or we give the builder money in this incentive program. These are direct pay to whoever that infrastructure component, whoever's billing for that is going to get paid by the county, not by the buyer or the builder. So we're trying to keep this clean, keeping the money out of either one of the builder or the buyer's pockets necessarily to reduce some risk, and also to make sure that those vendors get paid, right? So when they know they're being paid by the county, there's no risk for them to install that infrastructure. And they're not caught holding the bag if they do the work and then somebody doesn't pay them or whatever. They know they're going to get paid.
It's happened a lot, right? It's happened a lot, especially lately. And all of a sudden now the builder receives those funds and never pays them off. And then all of a sudden there's liens on the properties and it's just bad for everybody. And there's a lot of potential to game the system. And so this way, that's the curbs that you guys put in there to make sure that the money goes exactly for its intended purpose, that our hard-earned oil tax revenue, essentially, through the county's hands, then gets into the infrastructure, which has always been our biggest hurdle when building, is finding lots that are affordable because of the high cost and the burden of that infrastructure. So I really like that concept as well with the direct pay. I think that makes it a lot cleaner, levels the playing field, and then puts a lot more checks and balances in there. And I think that's going to be the biggest benefit of that rule.
Right. And one of the risks we've seen is a builder comes to town, they're going to build a bunch of houses, and they're going to go hog wild. Well, they get started, and then they start working on the project. They start implementing some of this infrastructure, and then something happens, and they end up pulling out of town, or they go belly up. What we're trying to do is make sure that infrastructure gets put in place. Doesn't matter if that scenario happens. Those contractors all got paid, and that infrastructure is already there. And so that the next builder and or buyer can come in and that infrastructure is in place. There's no additional cost for that, so the project can move on. And so it's a lot of risk mitigation, and there was a lot of intent and purpose built into this. And again, hats off to our staff, in particular Lindsay Harriman. Again, I want to just give her a lot of credit for this, having written all of this up and ran it through legal and then is also going to be a part of the committee that approves these in the end.
Yeah. She's a genius, obviously, and we all know who the brains is behind the operation. You've been seeing her. I've been in plenty of those meetings. She is incredible, and you're lucky to have her. And hats off to Lindsay, but also for you guys for listening, right?
Yeah.
The commissioners have had a lot of heat lately on some things that happened with, one of the properties here in town. There was a lot of heat, and I think this really just put you guys back on the map. And there's certainly people that won't understand this, and it's not going to be perfect for everybody. But the fact that you guys are being proactive and doing it with so many bells and whistles on it is phenomenal. So hats off to you guys as well.
And really, we're just trying to keep pace with Dunn County, McKenzie County. They've both implemented good incentive programs. We're good friends with those folks there. So we're taking from what they've learned, and which has helped us build a program, which we hope it's going to be effective. If it's not, we'll make changes along the way, and we anticipate that, right? This was not built as a mausoleum. We know this program's going to be perfect, and we're never going to change it. We think that it's probably going to take some tweaks along the way, but this is a great start for us to learn from and tweak as we go if we see need for that. But back to the financial assistance component of this, and we're trying to keep this clear. There's a property tax exemption. That's a separate part, separate implementation, separate process for this is the financial assistance part. And so that, I think we got into the infrastructure cost of up to $25,000 for the builder. And the next part of the financial assistance is up to $15,000 per buyer for closing costs and or interest buy down. They can do one or the other or a combination of both with those funds. And again, this is a direct pay to the bank. There is no Williams County pays buyer that money and then hope they pay the bank for those funds. They obviously have to as a part of the real estate transaction, but we want to stay in that business to business, county to business payment relationship just to make sure funds are very clearly paid and have a easy to track transactional process.
And let's just talk about the concept behind that. Other counties have said, hey, you can get up to $40,000 of down payment assistance. You don't need all that, right? If you're a buyer, you're looking for that 3.5% down. If it's FHA, up to 10% down. There's going to be some closing costs involved. There was some changes in the NAR rules last August that sometimes the buyer may have to pay for some of their agent's commissions out of pocket. So that has previously been killing deals. Either way, now you have up to $15,000, assuming you meet those other requirements, to then put towards the purchase of your house. That literally just got a whole bunch of more people off the sidelines, right? To then be able to have closing costs and money down to get into a house. And that's really the American dream. We just don't have a ton of inventory, less than 40 houses in our market right now. But that's really going to help those first-time home buyers, especially that have not had the chance to save through any other way. And I think that's the right type of people that we want to have here. We want to, you're going to make housing affordable, help the ones that are entry-level first-time home buyers. And so I thought that part of it was absolutely genius. It was the right amount of money without too much money, if that makes sense.
There's a fine line there. And I think it's important to note here, because we want there to be as little confusion coming out of this video as possible, right? This is for new construction homes, right? So that buyer financial assistance is going to be on any new home purchase. And so it's not going to be for a resale home or something like that. This is, again, we're trying to encourage that new inventory because, again, as you said, the listings are so down. There's just not a lot of inventory on the market, and that's keeping prices high. And so if we can start encouraging affordable housing by driving down some of these costs that are on every transaction, no matter what, closing costs are part of every transaction, and somebody's paying for that usually gets financed back into the loan. This drives down that overall cost, especially financed over 30 years, right?
Yeah.
So this benefit on the closing cost really is much more than just the $15,000 potentially when you multiply that out over the course of time.
Yeah, we did the math the other day. I wanted to know over the life of the loan, and obviously not everybody's going to hold their mortgage for 30 years. A lot of people are going to up and downgrade, but at the full term, it was over 50 G's. So that $15,000, when you add on interest rate at 7%, is going to be well over $50,000 that you're going to save over the life of your loan. Keep your payments more affordable, especially on the front end when you're getting your feet settled in that house, and then help you build equity even faster because it's not all going to interest. So that's why I was most excited about that. I was a financial advisor for 15 years, as you know, just like your wife was. And so that to me is helping the road to get people to the equity to then give them options to either upgrade, downgrade, or eventually sell their houses. And so I thought that was super cool as well.
Yeah. And again, we're, by focusing on the FHA limits, what is supposed to be a affordable home,
Yep.
I question it at $576,000. To me, that doesn't seem super affordable, but that's the market we live in, right? And so we're trying to drive down, it doesn't mean that every house has to be that 576. It's 576 and below. So hopefully we'll see some more affordable housing come from this. There is at this point, a lifetime maximum of $200,000 per builder or developer. And again, it's important to note that if it's a developer applying for the application, they need to have a North Dakota licensed contractor in good standing be signed up as a part of the application process. Again, we're trying to cross T's and dot I's for the buyer's sake, because you don't want to have an unlicensed contractor doing work. It's just going to lead to potential problems.
Especially with warranty, right? Like it's mandated that in North Dakota, you provide a 1-year builder warranty. You don't want somebody to take the $200,000 up to $200,000 and not be around in a year, as we've seen a lot in our market, especially when the builders aren't there to fulfill their duties in the warranty side of things. So yeah, another curb in there that just keeps all the players level, all the people on the game, following the same rules.
Absolutely. And so, one question that may come up from a lot of taxpayers is, where is this money coming from? How are we able to do this? And this is a $1.3 million funded program. And that money has come from bed fees from man camps, in essence, from crew housing. Not supposed to call it man camps anymore. It's called workforce housing. But that workforce housing, it's housing money going back into housing. So we're creating a little bit of a circular economy with those fees for the workforce housing and reusing those funds to help make people permanent residents of the area, as opposed to, inflow workforce type people that are in and out. We would like people to come here and live here. And another thing that Lindsay's worked on is our livability series of videos. And we're in Williams County is the program, and it's on our website as well. But they're video series based on what's so great about living here and things to do in Williams County, and where in Williams County can you do this, this, and this. And so we're not just doing housing incentives, we're trying to incentivize people to move here because we desperately need workforce. So we've got a tremendous amount of opportunity sitting in front of us, both in data centers and opportunities in the traditional oil and gas arena with companies like Saralon. We just have a portfolio of new development that's going to be happening over the next few years that we desperately need to do something to get us over the hump for housing. And all of this works together. Our investment in parks and trying to increase quality of life, our passing of a 1% tax on quality of life and public safety. Those are critical key elements of the whole coming together to work towards creating a high quality life, good quality life here, and also creating incentives to bring down the costs associated with the Bakken premium, if you will, of living here.
Yeah.
And so it's not just any one thing, it's a combination of everything.
Yeah, and I like that, taking a holistic approach and also being proactive, right? There's no inventory now. There's no places to live. We're having multiple bid situations that are crazy. And what we're seeing now is that it's those first-time home buyers on the affordable level that are getting cut out and squeezed out because they don't have the extra money to compete with an offer that's going cash or way over ask.
Exactly.
Houses just got listed today, late 70s, early 80s, in that 460 to 480 range. That's crazy. Like nowhere else in the country outside of like certain areas, maybe like California, would those houses be going for those type of numbers. And so that's insane. So speak to a couple of other groups, if you will. Speak to developers that aren't here yet in Williston. What would you tell them about the opportunities for them if things are slower? There's areas in the country that have 30 or 40,000 houses listed. Why build more when you have that much saturation, right? You and I will spend some time in Phoenix. There's 31 houses available on the market right now in Phoenix. So if you're a builder there, why would you continue to beat your head against the wall and hope that all these houses get absorbed now at a number that you can make? Why would you not just come up to North Dakota? So speak to those types of developers that may not know about our area and what would you tell them?
Absolutely. I think the number one statement that you could say about this region as a whole, and specifically Williams County, is that it's an area of opportunity. It does not mean that there aren't challenges in workforce and trades and things that are challenges, but we think that we're trying to break that barrier of mass development, and by creating some incentives, we hope we can help push that tipping point over, where we can start to bring in some of that mass development opportunity. And as we develop a lot of houses, as this development proceeds, and we get a lot of builder interest and we get more and more trades, it just makes that entry burden of pulling up from wherever they are and coming here that much easier. Now, all the ingredients are here. We just need somebody to really push it forward. And we want to, of course, encourage our local builders and continue to do what they're doing. But we're hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of homes behind. That's not an exaggeration in the least. There's a tremendous opportunity for people to come to the area and blow the doors off, literally, and continue to maintain our existing infrastructure of builders and tradespeople, but augmenting that and bringing in some bigger opportunities for the larger players, I think just helps everybody out. I think the more builders we get here, the more opportunities for trades and trade operations and successful operations to be able to continue to operate up here. It just opens up that door. So we just need to get that tipping point pushed, and I think it opens up a whole lot of opportunity from the larger outside players.
Yeah, and let's just talk about supply and demand. Last year we had about 60 permits pulled in our city. 60.
Right.
Think about that. Everybody at our last mastermind, when we talked about numbers, kind of everybody gave their own opinion, and these are really good developers and real estate gurus. The consensus was somewhere between 800 and 1,200 houses that were shy right now. And that's
right
before this great program hit the streets. That's
right
going to bring even more people off the sidelines that are now able to qualify. And also, rents are going up crazy, right? Like if you
right
take a look at some of our rents in apartments, you're now going to pay more for a 3-bedroom apartment or a townhome or even some of these trailers than you would to buy a house in that entry-level price point, even with rates as high as they are. So given all of those factors, when interest rates come down, when inventory goes up, that's going to pull even more people off of the sidelines, and a lot more people are starting to come back to Williston and Western North Dakota for the economic opportunities. So we
right
just think that the demand is going to continue to increase.
Absolutely. We've got a young market too, and that's something to point out. And people often don't know or realize that our average age is hovering right around 30, and our average wage is right around $100,000. So there's a lot of opportunity for a young class of people in this area, and this is really ideal. And that's why that housing market and that 576 and below is really, we really need to get that rocking and rolling.
Yep, couldn't agree more. And not only are people coming here to buy houses and take on these good jobs, nationally, the number one age group now that's buying first-time homes are 35-year-olds, statistically. So if 35-year-olds have a few years under their belt here making $100,000 and they love it, most people come here temporarily and then fall in love with it and never leave, right?
Yeah.
The money's good, the people are great, that North Dakota nice is a real thing. That's
Yep.
going to continue to increase the demand. What would you be telling landowners right now that may have some land that would be good? I know we have a lot of lots in the county outside of city limits that have already been approved that have some basic infrastructure, but not all of it. But we need kind of that next phase of lots that are going to come online. What is the pulse, first of all, of the county commissioners to get these types of projects approved? I'm sure it's easy to say, hey, we don't want any more lots because we already got them, go sell those. I get that. What would you tell landowners, and what do you think that opportunity for more development is in some of these rural areas?
Right. I'll start with the obstacles, and the obstacle would be spot development, right?
Yep.
We want to try to avoid any spot development. We want to try to keep things cohesive, working together. We've seen enough of that, right? We've had the era of the through the 20 pins where things just popped up everywhere here or there. It didn't make a lot of sense, right? So we want number one to make sense, build things where they're appropriate to build. Let's try to infill where we have infrastructure, because infrastructure is the hugest burden right now on doing any new development. So if you've got land that's close to the city, accessible by a road, in particular a paved road, that's just going to lower that burden to enter in getting them developed into residential lots. We'll have a hard and fast 1 acre lot minimum for anything with a septic system, and there's no way around that. That's just the way it is. A lot of people who are living a little outside of town are going to want that minimum of a 1 acre lot anyway. But key is as close to infrastructure as you can. And if you're already close, if you've got water already, if you've got access to sewer, boy, you've got hot property. So, but things where it's just out in the middle of nowhere, it just doesn't make sense from an infrastructure perspective for electricity, water, et cetera, et cetera. We'd like to see as many of the roads paved as possible, because they end up getting paved. The homeowners end up paying for that with a special assessment oftentimes. And so if we can get that out of the way on the front end of a project, that's going to be so much easier. Although, it just adds to the cost of developing a lots, but you know what, they're going to pay one way or the other usually. Yep. So there's just a lot of different things, but really the key is pick land that makes sense, that's close to infrastructure or already has infrastructure. It's just going to be the biggest factor in keeping the lot costs affordable so that you do have a very marketable property.
Perfect. All right. Well, quick couple wrap-up questions here, and then we'll summarize. But tell me really quick about the eligibility for this program on houses. So I was under the assumption that it had to be broken ground after that fact, but then I went back and looked into the details, and it says you've got to go, it's dependent on the date of the certificate of occupancy. April 15th, Tuesday, a house could have been started and ready to get closed and almost to the finish line, and all of a sudden now gets a certificate of occupancy the next day, and that's now eligible for the program.
Right.
Love it.
Yeah, so that's an interesting component to it. So the best thing to do is encourage people, if there's any question, like if they got their certificate of occupancy today, they should reach out to Lindsay. The permits or the applications are not going to be available until Monday the 21st, I believe, right?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, so Monday the 21st will be the first time that the applications are posted on the website, and that's when people can start filling them out. If they have questions, they should ask. I almost feel like we should have a forum that's associated with this website so that people can ask the questions in a public way, and then if somebody else has the same question, then we get answered there. But we'll get to that. But for the time being, they can call into the Community Development Coordinator, Lindsay Harriman. Development services should be up to speed on this as well. So that might be a logical place for people to go. That's where they're going to have to go to get their building permits, regardless if it's in the county. We'll get the city development services office up to speed with what we're doing too, because obviously it includes anywhere within the city for the buyer program, anywhere within the county, I should say, as well as the builder side. The only part that is different is the property tax exemption program, which is completely different. That's the only place where we have limitations on geographies.
So in addition to that, is there anything else you want to say about the builder buyer and housing incentive program? Any other closing thoughts on this?
Other than to encourage people to get building, and there's no excuse not to at this point. Really want to, I hope this thing really gets used a ton. I hope we run out of money right away. Yep. And then we have to figure out how to keep this bad boy going, because that'll be a great challenge for us as county commissioners, is to have such a great success on this that we have to figure out how to fund this again in the future. So that's my ultimate goal.
Yeah, I love it. Anything else you want to say about the program or any upcoming stuff that's happening for you guys?
I think that was it. I can't think of anything else at this point, Eric, unless you got a softball one for me.
That's it. I know we had a lot of info here, and I really appreciate your time and knowledge and all the work you're doing. I know it's not easy being a commissioner and in politics, especially in our town. And so I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I knew it was hard to get something booked, and also your commitment to education and making sure everybody's aware of this stuff, and we'll continue that as well. And if you haven't had a chance to subscribe to our Proven Realty page, please do so. That way you can be automatically notified for these types of interviews and other updates in the housing and real estate and development community. Otherwise, thanks so much to Steve Kemp, Commissioner, for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.